Hello and welcome to the Federal. You're once again watching Off the Beaten Track, a program in which we take a very wide look at one issue. From various aspects, we try to look at it. Something that is in news, something that has been controversial. So we will be picking up something which has actually been in news, has also raked up a lot of controversy. Somewhere around the towards the fag end of the budget session of Parliament, the government suddenly came up with the Waqf Amendment Bill 2024. Obviously, political parties, mainly the opposition and also the alliance partners of the BJP, were not prepared for it. There was a bit of a hue and cry. Finally, the government accepted and decided that they are going to refer this to the Joint Parliamentary Committee. Now, the Joint Parliamentary Committee is not a regular committee of Parliament. It is set up to look into specific aspects. To the best of my knowledge, the first time that it was set up was way back in the late 1980s when it was established to look into the Bofors controversy. So, from the first Joint Parliamentary Committee, which includes members of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, there have been a large number, 9 JPCs have been formed. This is the ninth one. From the first meeting, which was held sometime towards the third week of August, till now, there have been more than 25 meetings. That is till the time you're actually going to be watching it. 25 meetings would have been held. Now, Waqf Amendment Bill 2024. What is Waqf? Well, it is said that India is the largest Waqf holding in the world. As of September 2024, India has 8.7 lakh registered immovable Waqf properties. Out of the registered Waqf properties, 7% are encroached, 2% are under litigation, and the status of 50% is not known. Most of the Waqf, more than 50% it is said, that are either graveyards, agricultural lands, mosques, and shops. When we are talking about the Waqf Amendment Bill and also try to explain this subject, which is not very well understood by the non-Muslim communities, who do I turn to but Syed Zafar Mahmood, who has been a civil servant in his career for several decades. He was also the Secretary General of the Sachar Committee, which studied the status of Muslims in India. He is also the president of the Zakat Foundation of India. He's a fairly well-known scholar and a very keen watcher of India's society and politics, especially those that are related to the minority affairs. Welcome to the program, Zafar Sahab. It's really a delight to have and converse with you and try to demystify something which is actually talked about a lot but really not understood by the majority of Indians. My first question is, what is Waqf property? What is all the entire issue all about? Can you explain it in a language which the layman, somebody who does not understand the W to the F, all the 4 alphabets in it? Can you explain it, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Nilanjan, for giving me this outstanding opportunity of interacting with you and through you with the people of India. And my greetings to all the people who have been watching this program and will watch in future. You have asked what is Waqf. So Waqf is an Arabic word and the root is Waqafa. That is the 3-letter root in Arabic language, which means to stop, to halt. Okay. That really means that the transfer of property from one hand to another that keeps on happening in the world as the world progresses. If at certain point of time a property is declared to be a Waqf property, it means that from now on the owner is Allah, the creator of the world. So after that, the transfer cannot further go. So that
Okay.
is why it is known as, it's because it gets stopped, so it becomes waqf. That's why it's known as waqf. So, and another meaning of waqf is dedication, that it is dedication to the divinity, and therefore now the ownership rests with the divine, and the usufruct, the income therefrom, whatever is coming wherever, will be utilized for his pleasure, for the pleasure of the creator, which means for helping out the poor and needy. That is waqf.
Okay.
So, just like the five basic pillars of Islam, this is another fundamental uh, understanding belief system, part of the belief system in Islam, that those of the believers who are in a position to do that, either out
Hmm.
of their ancestral property or out of the property they create themselves, a part of the property or maybe even all, if they wish to dedicate as waqf,
Okay.
and in a loose translation in English is endowment, that's the nearest one.
Okay.
So if they decide to do that, then from then on, the usufruct shall be utilized for the helping out the poor and needy, and they are also such a person who makes the waqf is known as waqif, that is one who does that, donor, and
Okay.
that is his whatever he has expressed the desire that out of this property, out of the income of this property, this should be done. These are the heads under which they should be spent, the heads of charity. So that is supposed to be observed in letter and spirit always. That is waqf.
Uh, very well explained. In fact, I also did not know the meaning of the word waqf and did not know that actually means virtually a full stop, that it can't be transferred anymore to it. The way you explain it, obviously, it becomes very self-explanatory as to why you require a custodian as by, for something which has been, given by somebody in charity. Something related, before we move into the thick of work, also trying to understand another very related aspect of Islam. Giving land, or which you said that which has either been there from in the family from generations onward, or something which an individual has earned through his life. Charity, to my understanding, is also a very integral aspect of Islam. I the name of your foundation, Zakat. I think that it is also Zakat is supposed to be something very. Can you just explain to us very briefly about this, so that before that we move into how
Yeah.
the charity, one of the principles of Islam, that is what actually leads to Waqf.
Zakat is a mandatory charity. That is 2.5%, of the total wealth every year. Okay, on a given date of the choice. The date can be of the choice of the donor. So on a given date, whatever is the value of the wealth and the annual savings joined together.
Hmm.
So suppose that the qualifying amount is X. So 2.5% of X is supposed to be given as a mandatory charity. It is known as zakat. But Islam does not stop there. It says that in 2.219 in the Holy Quran, 2.219, it says
Hmm.
that the God says to the Prophet, "O Prophet, peace be upon you, your people are asking you how much we should give in charity. So tell them that out of whatever I have blessed them with,
Hmm.
they can retain for themselves and for their nuclear family, for their dependents, as much as is justifiably required, and the entire balance is supposed to be given by them in charity." So that is not mandatory charity. Mandatory charity is 2.5%, but out of the remaining
Okay.
97.5% also, there is some sort of quantification in Islam. So that is also broadly, loosely known as sadaqah. Sadaqah, like
Okay.
zakat, is mandatory charity. Sadaqah is not mandatory, but there God actually sees how much this believer of mine loves me and how much he
Hmm.
follows my general commandment. So, yes, you are right. Charity is a part and parcel of the Islamic faith, and
Okay.
you are supposed to do your best, utilize your all resourcefulness for earning the best. But you are not supposed to be utilizing the whole thing for yourself, and definitely not limited to 2.5%. but actually you retain for yourself only a small portion which is justifiably required for you, and rest of it you are supposed to be devoting to charity. There in that segment falls this waqf also.
Okay. I think very well explained, especially for those who do not understand Islam very well. Let's now try to move on to the Waqf Bill, the one which was actually brought in during the budget session of Parliament, towards the fag end of that, as I said. Now, the question is that what was the need for a new Waqf Bill? Why did the government bring it? Obviously, related to this issue is, was there any shortcoming in the previous bill, which was passed by Parliament in 1995? And prior to bringing the bill, was adequate consultation done with the stakeholders?
Actually, the bill which has been amended now, which is proposed to be amended through the Waqf Bill
Yes.
2024, the law which is proposed to be amended is not the law of 1995. Broadly, you
No.
can say yes, but that was substantially amended in 2013.
Okay.
So actually, what the government should have done, the Ministry of Minority Affairs, for the purpose of even thinking about whether to go in for any amendments now. So what they should have done would have been that from 2014 to 2024, how the Act of 1995, as amended in 2013,
2000.
how did
Yes.
it function? Were there any hiccups or bottlenecks? What was the success rate of various provisions of the law, etc., etc.? And that should have been studied in the whole country across the 29 provincial state boards. And that work is the statutory duty of the Central Waqf Council.
Hmm.
Central Waqf Council is the apex body in the center. But then, unfortunately, I would say that even before the Waqf Bill of 2024 would have been thought about, would have been started being drafted, even before that, the entire uh, Central Waqf Council was dissolved.
Hmm.
According to law, there are supposed to be 20 members, one chairman, and one secretary. And the
Hmm.
law says that all the 20 members will be Muslim.
Hmm.
And the law also says that even the secretary will be Muslim. Only the chairman,
Hmm.
for that condition is not there, because the union minister in charge of Waqfs is supposed to be the chairman, ex
Chairperson.
so other than him, all others are Muslims, and that position continued till a little before less than 2 years from now. So, but then that was dissolved. So there is
When was
no.
it dissolved? I'm just
That
interrupting.
was dissolved. I am told it was dissolved in February 2023.
Okay.
And that there are statutory duties, actually. The Waqf administration, just like in the income tax department, you dissolved, God forbidding, the Central Board of Direct Taxes. Then how it is how that can happen, and the whole country's administration, how will that happen? That cannot happen because there is no central authority then. Similarly, so there was no Central Waqf Council. So in any case, here what is more relevant for us is that this work of analyzing the effect, positive
Of
or
the
negative,
2013
of the
amendment.
2013 Act should have been done by the Central Waqf Council. In any case, there is no information that this work was done at all by anybody.
Okay.
So, in the absence of any such exercise, which I feel it was a sine qua non for for even thinking about any amendments, so that was all of a sudden the new amendments came. So that is the very unfortunate situation.
Okay. Let's try to. We are talking about the. You have referred to the 2013 Amendment Act, which was the last one prior to the effort being made by the government now. Let us from what I have been able to read and have a very superficial level of understanding. Laws related to the Waqf, are slightly more than 100 years old. 1913 I came across, that there was the first law which was actually subsequent to that was the laws in 1923, 1954, 1995. Now, again, for the layperson, how do you explain that? How has Waqf laws progressed over a century?
They have progressed positively, by the way. They have been,
Yes.
I mean, of course, every law needs improvement with the passage of time, particularly a
Right.
century. So, because the situation, circumstances keep on changing. And of course, the implementation also is a good experience, is the best teacher. So, that also happens. So, on the
That's right.
basis of the experiences, of the reports from across the country, uh, the collation is done by the central body, that is Central Work Council, what all should be done, what all not, what all improvements are required. That's how, like any other law, this Waqf law has also been progressing quite well, I would say. And
Hmm.
this 1995 Act itself was very nice, is very nice. And the amendments which were made later on, very heavy amendments were made. And by the way, let me also explain to you here that what went before these amendments were made in 2013. There was
Hmm.
a JPC Waqf appointed in 1996,
Okay.
and with a little break in between, it continued up to 2006 for 10 years.
Hmm.
They studied the whole thing across the country. They traveled various states, and they interacted with the stakeholders. Stakeholders include the state Waqf boards, the central Waqf council, the uh, the mutawallis, the administrator of each Waqf.
Most.
There has to be an administrator of each body. He is known by the term as mutawalli.
Okay.
So if there are a couple of lakhs, if there are 400,000 state of Waqf boards, Waqf properties, then there are 400,000 mutawallis also. So mutawallis are also stakeholders. So, and the people of Muslims of India, also particularly represented through national level NGOs who have been working for decades and centuries. So all these people were approached through huge advertisements in the national dailies in 25 languages issued by
Okay.
yeah. So incidentally, Justice Sachar Committee also was appointed during the same time period. Also, it was appointed
Right.
in 2005, and late 2006 it gave its report in 18 months. So both these committees, the JPC Waqf and the Justice Sachar Committee, they traveled across India. They interacted very widely with all these stakeholders, and after that, the consultants were appointed in Delhi, and they collated the information, so widespread information that was collated, and on the basis of that, the report was submitted by both of them separately, and on the basis of that, the government of India appointed a committee of secretaries
Hmm.
of about, I think, 15 secretaries headed by the cabinet secretary. Then they also gave the report, and
Okay.
it was after all such exercise that the Waqf Amendment Bill 2013 was presented and was passed. So you can say
Right.
huge preparatory work was done, and it was, I mean, but then
Yes.
as compared to that, now the Waqf Amendment Bill to 2024 was presented in Parliament without taking into consideration, without consulting the stakeholders. And
Right.
to top it all, even the Central Work Council was dissolved, it was not in existence.
Right. So,
And
while the
after
2013 Act, was very well deliberated and there were very adequate consultations, this time there has not been sufficient deliberation, and also in terms of consultation, there does not seem to have been done properly. Now, let me try to move on to the amendment which the government has moved and is now being studied by the JPC. There have been opposition to the amendment bill, though by and large the Muslim community, a large section of it especially, has found the amendment bill problematic. What are the principal problems that, according to you, are there in the amendment bill? What the government is trying to do?
okay, See, the Constitution of India in Part 3 talks about fundamental rights. And
That's
within
right.
that part, there is an important article, Article 26,
That's
which
right.
talks about the freedom to manage religious affairs. And it
Right.
says in very clear terms that every religious denomination shall
Hmm.
have the right to manage its own affairs in matters of religion, to own and acquire property,
Hmm.
and to administer such property. Word by word, this is what is mentioned in
Okay.
Article 26.
That's right.
Other than that, there is another article which provides for constitutional check on the process of lawmaking, and
Okay.
that is Article 13.2. Article
Okay.
13.2 says that it talks about laws inconsistent with or in derogation of the fundamental rights. It says that the state shall not make any law which takes away or abridges the rights conferred by this part, and any
Mhm.
law made in contravention of this clause shall be void. Very clear.
Okay.
So I am, for the time being, I am banking upon these particularly two. Otherwise, there is violation in this bill of many other articles of the Constitution. So based on this, in the beginning itself, what I have to tell you in very clear terms that the Waqf Bill 2024 suffers from procedural irregularities, as we briefly discussed just now,
Right. Yes. Yes.
constitutional violations, retrograde steps, irrationalities, non justifications, and preconceived notions. Therefore, the
Okay.
whole bill must be returned to the ministry with the direction that this bill should not be presented to Parliament. So, this is what I have been able to understand after studying the bill, maybe about for 150 hours.
Hmm.
And by doing so, there will be nothing unprecedented. It's not unprecedented. In 2010, under the UPA regime also, a Waqf Amendment Bill was presented to Parliament, which was not properly done up. There was a lot of protest, etc., from the Muslim community and from the both the houses of Parliament also. It
Hmm.
was likewise, it was referred in the Rajya Sabha, it was referred to the Select Committee. And after the Muslim community made representations before the Select Committee, then the Select Committee sent it back. They asked
Hmm.
the Parliament to send it back to the ministry, and it was not passed. And only after the amendments proposed by Justice Sachar Committee as well as the Joint Parliamentary Committee were properly incorporated in the bill, then
Hmm.
it was reintroduced in Parliament 2013, and that's how it was carried through. So
Right.
this will not be something new to be done and unprecedented. So, and one more very important thing I would like to tell the viewers through you, that
Hmm.
the people have departed from this world after donating for the pleasure of God. So
Right.
now, tampering with the property they donated is not liked by God. That's what
Okay.
everybody should keep in mind. Now you were asking me what is so troublesome in this. So for that,
Yes.
I will take you to some instances of some existing law. Like in UP, there is Uttar Pradesh Sri Kashi Vishwanath Temple Act of 1983
That's
that says that everybody who will be associated with the management at
of the
any
temple.
uh, sorry.
Of the temple.
Yes. So
Hmm.
from top to bottom, everybody must necessarily be professing Hindu faith.
That's right.
And by law, four designated secretaries of UP government, and one director culture, and the collector and commissioner of Varanasi, they are ex officio trustees. They
Members
are
of that. Hmm.
members of that. So for them, it is written that if any one of them is not in Hindu, then his immediate subordinate, who is a Hindu, shall
Okay.
replace him. So
That's
similar,
important.
yes. So likewise, there are similar laws in so many other states also, like Tamil Nadu, then Andhra Pradesh, and then in Karnataka, in Odisha, and so forth. So there is the law of the land, and
Also
most
for other faiths, Sikhism also,
yes,
the
yes,
Gurdwara councils, have to be Sikhs.
and Christians also. Christians also they have
Yes.
they manage their
That's right.
own. And also, there is an act of 160 years old. That is the Religious Endowments Act of 1863, which says that the state government shall appoint a committee in every division or district to exercise the powers, etc., from among persons professing the religion for the
Okay.
purposes of which the mosque or temple or other religious establishment was founded.
Now
So,
let me ask you a
so
direct
the law of
question
the
here.
land, add to that Article
Yes.
20, that's perfect
Yes,
law.
I now let me ask you a question related to this. You know, the government has trying to, through this bill, make non-Muslims to be the member of the Waqf boards. You know that is.
Yes, that's what I was
What
talking.
do you think? What in your mind do you think is the intention of the government?
Intention the government itself should be telling, but then I don't think that uh, any deep study is required to read the
That's
intention.
right. But
See,
I'd like to hear from
when
you.
when I have said to you that the law of the land says that every religious denomination has the right to manage the affairs of its own property, religious properties. So it's likewise the Waqf is also there. Then that's how the Waqf law has progressed across the century. It's very robust Waqf law existing already as amended in 2013. But then all of a sudden, if the government decides, and by the way, there is when a bill is introduced in Parliament, there is a statement of reasons. In the
Hmm.
statement of reasons also, which the minister introduced in Parliament, there is no mention why do they want to do. Why do they want? Why the government wants that as against the
Non-Muslims.
as against the facility and the privilege available to the followers of other faiths in India, why the Muslims of India should not be managing their own affairs in these religious properties. So, and why it is necessary that there should be at least two non-Muslims. For the first time, this has been introduced. At least two non-Muslims should be there in the Central Waqf Council as well as in each state Waqf board.
In
In
state,
addition,
in each of
in
the
addition to
states.
that, more than 50%. At the moment, as I mentioned to you, all the members of the Central Waqf Council are supposed to be Muslim as per law, and all the members, including the chairman of every state Waqf board, is supposed to be Muslim, even the secretary and the
Right.
CEO. But now the government has introduced this new bill which says that more than 50% there is no necessity to be Muslims. In addition to two persons being definitely non-Muslims, there can be 50, up to 50% persons. So you asked me in the beginning why what is the trouble and why it is being opposed, etc. I have just started talking to you, by the way.
That's
There's
right. I know
lot
that.
lot of talking points here.
Right. You know, there is also the bill, amendment bill, is actually introduces two categories of Muslims. Those who have been a practicing a Muslim for 5 years or less, and those who have been for 5 years or more. I really couldn't understand that. What is this? You know, two categories of Muslims. You know, is that, is it right to have actually categorized Muslims on the number of years somebody has been following that faith?
Now, I think your question is quite leading already. So, by the way, it's not two categories. It simply says, in fact, the existing law is very good as far as the definition of the Waqf is concerned. They are going to omit it. They are proposing to omit that huge, very detailed definition of Waqf, which is based on so many decades of litigation, etc. So all the hiccups have been removed from there. And they say, okay, we are going to delete this. And instead of that, they are saying that a Waqf will be that donation only, that endowment only, which is made by a person who has been practicing Islam for at least 5 years. So, now, so not only that he should say that I am a Muslim for 5 years, and even that is highly
Hmm.
objectionable, but then should be practicing Islam, which means that there
Yes,
has to be some sort of mechanism to look into the houses and find out whether the person is practicing Islam or not
exactly.
for 5 years before he qualifies to be a donor of.
Would you say that this is basically to, this? this entire bogey which the government of India and the BJP, that's the Bharatiya Janata Party, creates, about conversions, that people are being converted to Islam in India. Do you think that this is exactly to harness that entire issue politically and raise a flag, that we are doing it because we want to take a position against trying to minimize conversions? Do you think that this is the
No,
intention?
I don't think. I beg to differ from that. I don't think this has nothing to. That's a separate issue, yes,
Okay,
independently, but that I don't think that has any bearing here. Here, it's completely different. It is economic reason. As
okay.
you are saying, according to Justice Sachar Committee report, based on information received from all the state courts in writing, which was also based on their record also. So that is the only authentic figure. There are
That's right.
490,021 and the later figures which run into 800,000, 900,000. So that dichotomy I was explaining to you, that is because of the GIS mapping done later
That's
on
right.
in years, and where the unit is not number of work properties, the unit is number of manageable units.
Okay.
Manageable units, a new term they have coined. So manageable units there can be, and there are definitely in so many work properties, more than one. Originally there is one property, but it is being developed, so there can be more than one manageable units. That's how the figure is being reported at more than double of 8 to 100, 800,000, 900,000. Otherwise, it's
Hmm.
only 500, 491, 90,021.
Right. There's also this one clause I was reading. There was a primer as to what are the problematic areas on that. It is also listed that an expert in Muslim law will no longer be a member of the Waqf boards.
Tribunal, work
Yeah,
tribunal.
that expert is also saying that the survey commissioner will be replaced by the collector, the district collector or the
Yeah,
district
yes,
magistrate. Now, the
yes.
first question which comes to my mind is that if the survey commissioner is to be replaced by somebody who is very much a part of the bureaucracy, is the government trying to take control of Waqf properties through the back door?
100%. 100%. They are also they are introducing facilitatory clauses also, like they are saying that there will be a new portal of work
Hmm.
properties, online portal of work properties that will be established and managed by the central government. Not up,
Hmm.
there is already a portal existing which is known as WAMC, and that is managed by the Central Waqf Council, which means that that's managed by Muslims. So
Right.
Muslims are managing their property, but now they are saying that the central government will manage it, and all the Waqf properties, even if
Hmm.
they are 300 years old, 400 years old, 500 years old, all the Waqf properties have to get themselves registered, and a necessary requirement for being recognized for each such property as a Waqf property is that the Waqf deed should also be uploaded. So, if
Right.
400 years ago, my fifth or sixth or seventh generation did not think to write a deed, and there was no such tradition also at that time.
Hmm.
In any case, in Islam, in the concept of waqf, there is no requirement of writing a deed. It can be oral
That's
also.
right.
So, but they are doing away with that. That if you don't upload the waqf deed, then the waqf property loses its character. Related to that is another provision which is there in the existing law. It's known as waqf by user. That if there is a waqf property which is being used as a waqf property for 100 years, 200 years, etc., and all
Right.
the documentation says so, then it is a waqf property, for even if there is no waqf deed. So they are deleting that provision. That no, waqf by user goes now. In addition to that, they are bringing in two new definitions. One is government property, and
Hmm.
uh, the other is government organization. So any
Right.
property which belongs to any government organization, and the government organization they are defining as central government, state government, local government, any of their agencies, of their
Hmm.
authorized agencies, or any this thing, local office, etc. anyone, anyone to do which has anything to do with any government, that is covered in the government and the government property. So
Hmm.
if the collector decides that a particular work property is a government property, that's it. He has been
It ceases to be properties.
yes, he has been statutorily told, ordered to do as follows: that he will change in the revenue record the character from work property to government property and send a report to the central state government. On the
Hmm.
basis of that report, the state government will order the state work board to change their records that this is no longer a work property.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You have explained, that what are the, problem areas by and large, from a fairly macro picture with the amendments which have been proposed. There are, of course, several others. If we keep on trying to list them out, we'll possibly end up discussing it for an hour or maybe even more time, trying
Yes,
to
yes.
understand each of these, laws.
Yeah.
But let me try to once again, stay on the macro picture. Given the fact that the JPC has been going on, the meetings have been turbulent. Opposition members have been protesting. There have been a lot of walkouts. What is your, as a person, as one of the major stakeholders, what is your assessment of how the JPC has progressed so far? And that given the fact that the deadline is nearing, the winter session of Parliament is to begin in November, on the third week of November, it is supposed to begin. What is your assessment of what the JPC has done so far and how it is progressing?
Taking into account the short time at its disposal, I
Right.
can say that what the JPC is doing is actually like putting the cart before the horse.
Okay.
The discussion on whether what amendments should be made or not should not begin from a draft amendment bill.
Hmm.
It should begin, as I said earlier, after
From an assessment of the previous bill.
yes, previous bill and consultation with the stakeholders across the country, which was
Okay.
done earlier for 10 years by the earlier JPC for 10 years. And added to that were 18 months of Justice Sachar Committee. So all that is sufficient on the basis of all that was done by a duly elected government. And on the basis
Right.
of that, amendments were made. So now what is being proposed is really not an amendment bill. It's just like taking away the control of the Waqf properties from the Muslims.
Right.
That is actually it's that. So because you ask me about any proposal, there is not a single proposal in the Waqf bill which I can say that yes, this can be accepted. There was
Okay.
one is one proposal which the minister talked about, especially that in every state Waqf board and in the central Waqf council there should be two women members.
Right.
This is wonderful.
Right.
Should be done there, but that has already been done. The
It's already been there. Oh, yes.
2013 Act, it has already been done. It was proposed by Justice Sachar Committee, and the government accepted
And it has
that.
been
Got
accepted.
passed
That's
from
right.
Parliament, and it was gazetted in 2013, and it has been implemented. So there is no proposal, not a single, which I can say that yes, this is a healthy proposal, and this should be allowed to continue. The entire bill has to go.
I think that's very well put, that the entire bill has to go. And as you said, that the entire process has not been done. Before you want to bring a new bill, there must be a kind of an assessment as to how has the previous bill functioned. You have spoken about it fairly at length. Uh, we fear, this is my statement, and I would like to conclude at this point that we fear that this bill is also part of this government's majoritarian approach, which has actually been seen to increase over the past years, which one had expected that after the 2024 Lok Sabha elections, this would be watered down, but it has not been so far. Politically, we will have to look at as to what is the response of the coalition partners of the BJP. There is going to be a lot of ground to be covered as far as the amendment Waqf Amendment Bill is concerned, we will keep a close track about it. And if there are any very important future developments, we will come back, Mr. Syed Zafar Mahmood, once again to you and then talk and try to demystify this entire issue, which very few people understand. And thank you for joining me today and explaining very lucidly a fairly complex subject, which I'm sure that at the end of it, our viewers would have been able to understand the Waqf bill and the related issues very well. Thank you very much once again.